Welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast, where we talk self-care strategies for creatives. We also talk mindset, wellness, personal growth, and artist development within the music industry. I'm your host, Stefani Fryzel. I'm an artist, author, and creative coach, and the founder of Stefani Fryzel Coaching, where we help artists, songwriters, and producers increase their impact, income, and visibility within a year with our artist development program. This season, we are diving deep into calling forth your next level. I'm so glad you're here. All right, welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast. My name is Stefani Fryzel. I am an author, a songwriter, and an artist, and I also run Stefani Fryzel Coaching. We are a creative coaching company for artists, songwriters, and producers. Today, we're going to be talking about writing for yourself versus writing for other people. So this episode is for all of my songwriters out there who are also artists. Sometimes we get thrown into the room with another artist and our role becomes supporting that artist as the songwriter. And then other times we're in songwriting rooms where we are the artist and we get to work with a producer and it's all about our vision, our sound, what we want to talk about, what we want to create musically that day. So this is a really awesome topic because I relate to this myself. I'm an artist and a songwriter. So there's plenty of times where I'm in the room as just the songwriter and I am there to support the artist. And depending on who I'm working with, they could be a pop artist, a country artist, they might have a bit of a rock feel to it. And my job becomes supporting that person and helping them find their voice and helping them craft the song that they're trying to say that day. And then there's other times where I'm just focused on my artist project and it's like, what do I want to create today? What's my art? What's my message? And what is the sort of creative clay that I want to have fun with today? So this is an awesome topic for anyone who is a sort of a hybrid like me. I'm an artist and a songwriter. And if you do both, if you do sessions with other artists and you also work on your own project, this is a perfect episode for you to explore the differences between writing for yourself and writing for others. So there's a couple of main differences. There's definitely an emotional difference when you are playing with your own self-expression versus helping someone else sort through their emotions and being sort of a therapist for that person that day and helping them kind of pull the nuggets out of their story and craft a song. So there's definitely an emotional difference. There's a role of vulnerability there that's a little bit different because part of your job as a songwriter is to create a safe space and allow the person to be vulnerable around you. And that's a very finessed, very nuanced skill. And this is why I wrote a book about self-care for empaths and highly sensitive people, because a lot of the time creatives are empaths. We have this beautiful gift of sensitivity and being able to read a room, read a person, and to know the timing and the nuance of when to, sort of pull the thread a little bit and get a little bit more out of them and try to peel back the onion layers and get to the goods of what you're writing about that day. So what else is different? There's also an adaptability that you have to have when you're a songwriter in the room. Sometimes you're in the room with multiple people, multiple personalities, and someone might be really strong at production or melodies or lyrics. So you often have to kind of understand right away whose strengths are what and understanding like, okay, this person is very great with song concepts. This other person is stronger with melodies. And then you kind of have to find your way to like adapt to the room and find what strengths you can bring to the table that day as well. And if you happen to know like, oh, my strength is melodies, then that's your thing. That's your come from. And that's where you start and you find out along the way. So there's definitely an adaptability that needs to happen when you're a songwriter in the room. Whereas when you're your own artist and you're working on your own project, you can just do whatever you want. You can have, fun at the whims of your own creativity and kind of just go with the flow there. So the other thing that's a little bit different is you finding your own voice versus serving someone else's vision, right? So when you're a songwriter in the room, your job is to serve that artist and help their vision come to life. Whereas when you're working on your project, you're the boss, you get to create your vision, you get to create your sound. So there's a lot of differences between working on your artist project and working on someone else's artist project, right? So sometimes there's a lot of hat switching that goes on, and something that comes up when clients are coaching with us is how to juggle those switches, right? How to go from songwriter to artist. Or, there's also a lot of people that have mindset blocks around becoming an artist themselves. They may have already been traditionally or historically in the room as a songwriter only, but really want to work on an artist project, or if they've never done an artist project before. And so there's almost like an identity shift that needs to happen when someone is usually the songwriter but wants to work on an artist project. So I'm going to cover a couple of just questions that sometimes come up, and I can go through a little bit of a rundown on how you can play into that identity shift if you happen to be a songwriter that wants to work on an artist project, or if you're already doing both and you just want a little bit more of just some feedback on how to bounce from one thing to the next. Okay, so here's some questions that come up sometimes. How does your creative process change when writing for yourself versus writing for other artists or commercial projects? Okay, so this is kind of what we were talking about before. So the creative process totally changes from artist to artist. If you're in the room with a specific artist, and again, your role as a songwriter is to help that artist with their message, with their vision, help them figure out what they're trying to say emotionally, help create a safe space vulnerably so they can open up to you and tell you their tea and tell you their story. And then together you guys work on sort of crafting the melodies and the lyrics and creating a musical journey together. So there's that. That's a completely different creative process than when you are on your own and you get to just kind of pull out all the different colors, all the different paints, and just play. So one major difference is one role is you're serving another person's vision, and then the other process is you're serving your own sense of play. So this is why I think it's so cool when there is a hybrid, because you get to kind of tap into different realms of creativity, right? Like on one hand, you're helping someone else. And then on the other hand, you're helping yourself. You're helping yourself tap into a vein where you get to have self-expression and you get to talk about topics that you want to talk about. And maybe there's drama going on in your life and you need that outlet that day, right? Like this is why we get into music, and this is why we're creative, and we need that specific freeform outlet to be able to express what we're going through and also to make sense of what we're going through. So that's how the creative process definitely differs, is that on one hand, you're sometimes supporting another person, and then on the other hand, you're really supporting yourself and helping yourself with a creative outlet and letting yourself be free in terms of exploring your own vision. So another question that comes up is, have you ever written a deeply personal song that ended up resonating with others? How did that feel? Of course. I mean, music is personal, and it depends on the song that you write that day. If you happen to write a really emotional ballad, right, and then you put it out and someone hears it and you get that feedback, it's like the greatest thing in the world to hear someone reach out to you and say, hey, your song changed my life, or your song saved my life, or, your song helped me leave an abusive relationship. Like this is how powerful music is, you guys. Think about that when you're creating your music and when you're contemplating whether or not you should put it out. Know that when you do put out your music, it has the power to influence people. It has the power to impact them in a positive way, even if you don't see it every day. I think artists struggle with that sometimes. It's like, oh, I make all this music, I put it out, and then they're like, am I even getting anywhere with this? Is anyone listening to this? But just know that when you put out your music, it has the power to affect people. And that is so, so, so incredible. And don't forget how amazing that is, that you have a unique perspective that needs to be shared with the world and that it will impact someone somewhere in a positive way. So how freaking cool is that? Pretty awesome, right? So the other question that sometimes comes up is, what is the biggest challenge in maintaining authenticity when collaborating with artists or writing for briefs? This is such a good question, because Again, if you're working with an artist, your number one goal is to help them be the best that they can be, right? Like you are the sky to their sun. Like you are the backdrop to like help them, flourish into whatever they're trying to do. And then when you're writing for a brief or something, that's a very specific thing. You might get a sync brief and say, here's what we're looking for. We need X, Y, Z. And the project becomes sort of shooting a hoop into a basket and hoping that you sink it, hoping that you get it right. So authenticity comes into play here when you know what your strong suit is, you know what your style is, you know what your sort of secret sauce and secret flavor is in terms of your unique style of writing. So ask yourself that question. What is part of my authentic writing style? What makes your writing unique? What makes working with you unique? What makes the process with you unique? Is it that you have a very specific type of melodic flow? Is it that you always bring your own sort of lights to the session or crystals? Do you bring your own specific vibe to the session? Tap into the things that really make you you and bring that to every project that you're doing. So that way, you know that you're bringing something that's very personal to you. And the more authentic you are, the more people will connect with you and you'll find the people that you love to work with and that love to work with you. So I do like to caution sometimes and be like, you know what? You don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. There's a million people to work with. There's a million different projects. You don't have to say yes to everything. I know a lot of people do say yes to everything. And for the most part, I do agree when you're first starting out, say yes to as much as you can because you get a lot of experience that way. But eventually you have to determine the course of your direction. And if you say yes to everything, you get pulled in all these different directions and then there is no direction. So that's just something to think about. And then moving on to one of the other final questions about this topic. I love this topic. We are talking about writing for yourself versus writing for others. Another question that comes up is, how do you know when a song should stay yours or be pitched to someone else? Oof, this is a great question. It kind of just depends, honestly. I've been in that situation before many times where I've written a song that it's actually happened in both ways. I've written a song where I had an artist in mind, or it was a pitch song, and I had no intention of using it for my artist project. And then it sat on the shelf for like 2-3 years, and I would always listen to the demo over and over and over again. I'm like, you know what, this song is fucking fire. And then I ended up just putting it out on my own project. And I was like, interesting. That's a weird roundabout way of something happening. Because like, I don't know about you, but there's some demos that just you keep going back to and you keep listening to them and you just love them, but they never find a home. And you're like, well, I don't want this to just sit on the hard drive and collect dust. So fuck it, I'm just going to put it out. So I've definitely had that scenario and it's played out super well in a lot of cases where it's just like a demo that it wasn't something super like close to my heart. It was just something really fun that I loved making. And I just couldn't bear having it sit there collecting dust. And I was like, fuck it, let's just put it out. And then I would get syncs with it. And, some of them streamed really well. And I was like, okay, well, there's something to be said for coming back to the work that you started and listening to old demos and paying attention to when you love something and you keep coming back to it. That means that there's something there. And on the flip side of that, how do you know when, a song is for someone else or for you? That's the question, is how do you know when a song should stay yours or be pitched to someone else? Yeah, it's a little tricky because sometimes you might write a song that is so close to your heart and it's for your artist project and it ends up being this amazing song, right? And you're like, holy crap, what if someone else super famous and, big artist, whatever, what if it was better for them, right? And then you have this emotional attachment to this song to be like, oh, but this is my song and it's for my artist project and, I don't want to let it go. That's a tricky situation too, because I've definitely been there where I've written songs that felt very true and personal to me and my artist project. And then I've had like my collaborators be like, can we pitch this to so-and-so? And I would be like, no, I'd be like, but I love it so much for myself, So my go-to is always this, is like, give it a little bit of time and see how you feel about it. Be open to pitching things because you just never know. Like, what happens if you don't let that song go to the hands in someone else and that ends up being the song that could have broken open your career or been a hit that, wouldn't have been otherwise if it was on your project, not to throw shade or anything on anyone's project, but like there is that what if, right? And so give give it a little bit of time and see how you feel emotionally and be open to pitching it. You never know what can happen in this industry. There are so many countless stories of people that have written songs that sat on the shelf for years and then all of a sudden that was the one that became the hit, or it was originally for this other artist and then it got through the mill and then all these other artists recorded it and it ended up way over here. And then that was the version that became the hit. So long story short, you don't always know the answer, right? You don't always know when you should keep a song for yourself or when it should be pitched to someone else. Always be open to pitching things, but also you are the creator of your project, right? You are the boss when it comes to your project. So if there's something you're super duper adamant about keeping and you're like, hell no, this is my song, then I support that too. Because if you know in your soul and you know in your heart that this is your art, your project, it belongs with you, then stick with that. There's really no rules there. So I would just say, give it some time, give yourself an emotional check. But if you know in your gut, like this is yours and it's no one else's, then just keep it that way. And then the last thing, something that comes up sometimes is, can you share a story of a songwriting session where you had a complete shift in your perspective to fit someone else's vision? Great question. Something that comes to mind is a session that I had many years ago, and it was before I sort of took my writing style to like a little bit more of like a fun, rappy kind of, almost like a joke, like kind of like writing songs that I'll have like a different personality than how I feel on the day to day. It's almost like taking on a different character, right? Before I started playing with that, I wrote with a producer team a few years ago, and they were extremely good at like just coming up with like super silly lyrics and like being like goofy and whatever. And at the time, it wasn't really my style. And our styles, at least on the inside for me, I was like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable. This isn't really my normal go-to. But I learned so much from that team that day. Even though I was uncomfortable, I learned a completely different way of writing a song. I learned how to be a little more silly, a little more fun, a little more humorous, a little more goofy, and not taking myself so seriously all the time. Because like usually I would be like writing like the really emotional stuff and kind of going there. And then once I worked with a few people that showed me a different way of approaching a song or showed me a different way of coming up with lines or coming up with different rhymes, I never forgot that. I felt uncomfortable that day. I really remember it was a visceral experience. I was like, this isn't really me. This isn't my style. But I took it as a lesson learned and I went home with it. And then when I started playing around by myself for my own, on my own time, I remembered that style. And I was just like, what if I just tried this style on a little bit more? What if I tried a little bit more goofy lyrics? What if I tried a little bit more humor? And then it actually started to work, right? Like it actually, I started creating something I never would have created otherwise had I not been in a session with another person with a completely different writing style. So that's just a story that comes to mind where I've been in a session where our styles are completely different, but the shift in perspective gave me such a great lesson in songwriting and actually helped me improve my songwriting overall. And this is why you want to stay collaborating with people, you guys. All right. So that is that episode. Thanks for tuning in. We had a great discussion about writing for yourself versus writing for others and exploring the difference between the two. So if you want to keep in touch with us, we have lots of events coming up all throughout the year. Later this year in October, I'm hosting the annual Hitmakers Songwriting Retreat with Stefani Fryzel coaching. We are doing 3 whole days of songwriting with hit songwriters. You're going to get in the room with really top of the line songwriters and producers, and we're going to be on a high vibe, high frequency for 3 days together. We're going to do mindset, we're going to do coaching, and I'm so excited to create this amazing in-person experience in Los Angeles. So definitely check out the ticket link. I'll keep all that information in the show notes for you. Please reach out. Feel free to connect with us or the team and be on the lookout for all the episodes and all the events that are happening throughout the year. And I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're an artist, songwriter, or producer looking to rise to your next level, come join us at the Songwriter Series for music mentorship from hit songwriters. Or join us at our annual Hitmakers Songwriting Retreat this October in Los Angeles. For more info on all our events, visit stefanifryzel.com or just email us at info@stefanifryzel.com. For more self-care gems, check out my book, Self-Care for the Creative. And don't forget, self-care is always within reach, and your greatest masterpiece will always be you.